Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Power of Our Story. We at the Power of Our Story are a place of safety for our protectors to process the journey together with others that get it. We are building a tribe in the gap where we are losing our protectors to hopelessness and suicide. We do this by storytelling as our stories connect us. You can reach out to us at the Power of Our Story and meet our amazing community that cares about you and understands. Please don't spend years suffering in silence. Tonight, we would like to welcome our guest, Michael DeSelm. Michael is a Navy veteran. He's gone through quite the story with his life, with things such as battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and battling and surviving from it, um, and has continued throughout his career. It looks like he is now a part of Stop Soldier Suicide. Um, he says this isn't your typical nonprofit. It's the only national veteran funded and led nonprofit focused solely on military suicide prevention. They use data insights, best in class technology, commercial marketing best practices, and evidence based services to find and serve veterans at acute risk for suicide. This is not a job, this is personal. So, with that, Michael, I would like to go ahead and turn it over to you and have you share your story with us.
Wow. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for, I'm humbled that you're choosing to spend an hour of your Thursday evening with me. Hey, my name's Michael, and I'm stuck in a bad Billy Joel song. Any Billy Joel fans with us this evening? Anybody? So, also known as Allentown, Pennsylvania. Here's looking at you, East Coasters. It's interesting. The song actually has nothing to do with Allentown and everything to do with Bethlehem Steel, but that's another podcast for another evening. For the rest of us, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me tonight as I get to share, I don't think, a story that is any more or less remarkable than anybody else who's going to join us on this call tonight or listen to this at a later time. And I don't mean that to minimize, in as much as I intend that to acknowledge that there's a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys. There's a lot of suck along the way. As was said earlier in a phrase that I often tell my son, we have to embrace the suck so we can get to the other side. And I certainly feel like I'm in great company tonight. And if there was probably one word that I could use to sum up everybody's introduction, is the word resilient. We are all resilient folk, having to endure and process and find ways to carry forward. Any fans of the Rocky series? Probably Rocky V was like the worst movie ever, but one of the best lines ever said and notable and quotable was, it's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep getting up and keep moving forward. And so I definitely feel like I'm in the company of good friends this evening, as we've all taken our punches and moved forward. So thank you for joining me this evening. If you have a coffee, because I was told this is Coffee and Conversations, I have my coffee cup. It's got herbal tea because it's 9 o'clock, and I'm about you guys. I'm tired. But in true extrovert fashion, I'm excited because there's a group of people here that want to hear me talk. And that means the extrovert in me is so freaking happy that I get to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about my favorite subject. Me. Actually, no, it's actually not my favorite subject. If you read the bio, I'm not one for titles. I'm not one for accolades. I've got a box for that crap. I don't need a name tape, and I don't need a medal, and I don't need an award. I'm just a dude. If anybody fans of The Big Lebowski, everything's a movie quote from me, by the way. If you've seen The Big Lebowski, I'm a dude who's just trying to abide and get by and make everybody's life a little bit brighter along the way. Yes, I am a Navy veteran. I spent almost 15 years working in medicine. I joined at the tender age of 17. Emancipated from my family at 16 because I'd already graduated high school and decided that I knew better for my life than anybody else, because we all do at that tender age. When the money ran dry and I realized that I couldn't be a qualified beach bum on the beach of Imperial Beach, San Diego, California, I decided that the Navy was the best place for me. And it really was. It was the best decision that I could have made. It gave me structure, it gave me focus, it gave me purpose, it gave me something to do. My mother was in the Coast Guard, my dad was in the Coast Guard, my stepdad was in the Navy. Random fun fact, I can actually trace military service every generation back to the Civil War in my family. Somebody from every generation served. Most everybody was in the Army. So for you guys that like your rating badges and your merit badges and your Boy Scouts, and I'm just kidding, one of my best friends is an Army guy. No, it's been an interesting journey. I chose medicine because I grew up in a family that was codependent and sick. This should not be a strike cause for anybody either. My mother had lupus. My father was a raging alcoholic. My stepfather was a raging alcoholic. So when it came time to join the service, I'm like, I'm just going to go do what he did. And yes, I'm going to go into medicine because what do I know how to do? I know how to take care of people. It's what I've been doing all my life. If I could go back, which we all, have that moment, maybe I would have joined the Air Force and been a pararescue jumper. That sounds like it would have been a lot more fun than being a Navy corpsman, but it actually worked out really good. I got to spend 2 years working on a cancer floor where I met my amazing wife. We've been together. Don't quote me on this. This is where we go back and make sure the recording actually says the right thing. So we got married in 2001. We've been married 22 years. We've have 3 great children, a 25-year-old daughter who's active duty, who is a corpsman herself, who is currently stationed out in Hawaii with 3rd Littoral Combat Regiment. 2 other children, my youngest daughter, Gabby, at 20, and my son at 17, who is a varsity wrestler at Parkland High School. And if you know anything about Pennsylvania and the Northeast, you know that this is a wrestling hotbed. So the fact that he made varsity as a freshman walk-on means that either he got really, really lucky, or all those MMA classes as a kid really taught him something. I joined the Navy. I got to see some really, really neat places. I met an amazing woman who I get to call my wife, and I got to do some cool things. I was a head and neck surgical tech for 3 years in Bremerton, Washington. So shout out to you folks in the Pacific Northwest. Much love up there. Other fun fact, I've been to 48 of the 50 states. I'm missing North Dakota and Alaska. I've driven through, stepped in, spent time in, walked on the ground of almost every state in this country, and it's been great. Not to mention a couple other continents along the way. I was a hard hat diver. I went to dive school in Panama City in 2002, hoping that I was going to be a grease monkey fixing ships underwater. But there was this crazy thing that happened, pretty traumatic event. Actually, I shouldn't make light of it. This crazy thing happened in 2001 that kind of changed the trajectory of this country and all of us who were serving at the time, one way or another, whether we were in law enforcement, first responding, or currently serving, or defendants or family members of people who served. Dive school sounded great because Afghanistan was landlocked. Cue the laughter, folks. Cue the laughter. Come on. We need to stay lighthearted. Interestingly enough, though, I ended at a SEAL team. I ended up at a SEAL team doing dry deck shelter work with our nation's finest men and women from 2002 to 2009. And we got to go places and do things. And it was some of the best years of my life. It really was. Chaplain Todd, this is a shout out to you, because it was somewhere in the midst of all that I heard a higher calling to go into vocational ministry. So I left a military career and a pension on the table to move to this crazy little place called Allentown, Pennsylvania, to start a church for people who don't like church, because I don't like rules. Like all of us that put a uniform on, we are all rebellious. We all just want to do our own thing our own way because we all know better, right? Come on, everybody nod your head. I know it's late, folks. Let's keep it all together. It was great. It was really, really wonderful. Our lead pastor was a Navy veteran like I was. My wife was our children's pastor and our children's director. And it was great because you had 3 swashbuckling Navy knuckleheads who had never been in vocational ministry, creating a safe space for people to encounter grace and rest and health and holiness in a non-traditional presentation of just getting together to do community. Until 3 years into that, lo and behold, my dear mentor and friend Richie was diagnosed with end-stage lung cancer. It's one of those moments where you're looking at the CAT scan and you feel like you're the only person in the room who knows exactly what's going on. And everybody's kind of looking at you saying, what are the dots? I don't understand. And you're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you how bad that really is and what that long-term prognosis is. Because I know, especially through my own cancer journey, and I know there's some cancer survivors on this call with us this evening, and we'll listen to this later. One of the most infectious things that you can do to combat any life-threatening injury is have hope. And I never wanted to rob Richie of his hope. And so I was the good soldier. My wife was the good soldier. We did what we could to support. And after 18 long months, Richie went home and left this huge void in our lives, because my parents had passed, my wife's parents had passed. We were always kind of the couple that just figured it out. In the bio I shared with everybody tonight, it's kind of linking the 3 G's: grit, grace, and gratitude. And if there's something I know about everybody on this call tonight, is that there's a lot of grit in this room, like 100 grit sandpaper. And that was a grit moment for us. And unfortunately, all of the trauma of my childhood, all of the trauma of my service, all of the trauma of losing my mentor and my mother on the same day, left me in the bottom of a bottle. And it's the worst kind of drunk, honestly, because not only can I trace military service back to the Civil War, I can trace alcoholism back to the Civil War. And when I say it's the worst kind of drunk, it's the kind of drunk that can sit here and smile and have a good conversation and not waver with you, and nobody knows while you're dying inside and you're just totally inebriated. But these are the faces that we put on because we're coping, because we're trying to survive, we're trying to get through, we're gripping. We call it white knuckling, we call it lots of different things in lots of different ways. And every Sunday morning, as I stood in front of that congregation to deliver my remarks on what spiritual teaching I had for them that week, I was afraid that I was going to be recognized as an imposter, because I was battling my own demon and trying to keep this tender-hearted congregation, which had already been through hell, together, while trying to keep my family together and keep myself together. But these are the things that we do. There's no shame here. There's no guilt here. There's just acknowledgement. As I was going through that process of recovery, I was fortunate enough to find myself at a therapist who practiced CPT, cognitive processing therapy, where I spent a lot of time writing things down. Not to you, Natalie, the writer. Spent a lot of time writing things down and looking at them, not in the moment, but later. If you are someone who writes, and it sounds like there's certainly a couple writers in this group tonight, I would encourage all of you, take some time to free write. Don't think about the punctuation. Don't think about the grammar. Don't think about the spelling. Just write. Write with your own hand. Don't write with the keyboard. Don't write with the typewriter. Don't write with the word processing unit. Yes, I'm dating myself, but I'm dating all of you because you're all nodding and you know what that is. But take some time to have a journal where you write with your own hand in your own scribble. Don't judge it, just let it flow. It was probably the most cathartic thing I could do. And in reflection every week, as I sat with my therapist, we took the time to identify 3 words in my writing: would've, could've, and should've. And if I could implore you, among many things that I would implore you this evening, remove those words from your vernacular. What's done is done. What's said is said. History is behind us. So I spent a lot of time saying, you know, I would have done this, I should have done that, I could have done that. And the reality is that shit's done. In dive school, we had the sign of the universal dead horse. Sometimes we need to take a few moments and look at the dead horse, call it what it is, and then let that dead horse rest. And that's something that I desperately needed to do. And so I was really, really thankful for having the resources to get me through that journey, to continue to put some of those things into practice, the daily writing exercises, whether it's an attitude of gratitude or just a mindfulness moment where I just kind of stop all the noise around me and just be really, really still and say, okay. In the midst of all that, I had a chance to go back to college. Thank you, taxpayers. I am big fans of you guys. You've paid for 2 college degrees. I've got a bachelor's in religion from Liberty University in 2014 and a master's in business from Cairn University in 2019. That was the only university that I walked from. I did make my kids come with me to that one because it's important that our children see us succeed even as we're adults. So thank you for paying your taxes and funding my college education. Deeply appreciate that. I hope I'm putting it to good use, not just this evening, but in all things that I get to do. And it was in that time that I had a chance to start working in the nonprofit sector. I knew that caring for the spiritual care and wellness of a church was not something that my heart was able to do anymore. And all of us are in some capacity first responders. So compassion fatigue is a thing. I know many of you are familiar with that phrase. And if you're not, I'm sure you will be by the end of the evening when you do a little Google University search. But compassion fatigue is a thing. And I was exhausted. And so I had to find the spot to best utilize my gifts. And so just after I graduated in 2019, I started looking for a new opportunity. And then this crazy life-altering thing happened to all of us again, called COVID. And our world all kind of came to a stop. And so as I was working in the nonprofit sector that I was at, I tried to do my best to keep us afloat. Thank you, PPP. I guess it's my tax money too. And so maybe it's my kids' tax money, my grandkids' tax money. Hopefully we'll figure this debt ceiling thing out and we'll get all these bills paid one of these days. Another conversation for another night. I know, I'm sorry. This is what you get when you give an extrovert coffee at 9:30 at night. Like all of us, I did my best to put some of those mindfulness techniques in place again, right? So daily gratitude, daily writing, though the call of the bottle found itself ever familiar, calling again and again and again. So it's been a daily journey every day to sit down and say, I'm in control of my mind. I'm in control of my heart. I'm in control of my feelings. Feelings are not bad. Behaviors can be. So what are the behaviors that I need to be exercising to keep me healthy? And so I've spent some time in a gym here or there, and I continue to do that because it's not just good for my physical health, but for my mental health. And fortunate enough to find myself in a good community of friends. And so every morning at 5 o'clock, I'm up at 4 East Coast time. So that gives you an idea where my tiredness is. I'm up at 4 and I have a Zoom call with my 3 friends at 5 o'clock, and it's a 30-minute check-in. These 3 guys, hey, how are you? What's going on? And sometimes it's just BS, and sometimes it's just very real. Like, hey, my wife and I are fighting, and there's fire on the home front, and somebody help me clear my head. And so we 3 men got in this habit. It's something we used to do when we worked out together anyway. COVID kind of made that not happen for us, so we Zoomed it. And so it kept me sane, kept me on an even keel. Until my 21st, no, actually, I guess that would have been my 20th anniversary. I started noticing some kind of weird back pain. Anybody do some lifting, powerlifting? Anybody familiar with the 1,000-pound club? So, combined deadlift, squat, and bench press of 1,000 pounds. I've been there before. I was working my way back there again. I was lifting heavy things. I picked things up. I put them down, that kind of stuff, right? And I just had this crazy back pain that just wouldn't go away. And so I just kept going to the chiropractor, getting adjusted, and, taking my supplements and trying to stretch it out. I know more about my psoas muscle and my SI joint than I ever thought I would ever need to know. Trying to stretch all that stuff out. And for 3 months, I just couldn't figure it out and kept walking funny and kept getting a limp. And finally, got tired of getting yelled at by my wife about needing to go actually see the doctor. And so I went and finally saw the doctor. And he's like, yeah, we don't, I do hips. I don't do backs. You've got back pain. He turfs me to the next doctor. The next doctor is a kinesiologist. He's like, I don't know, maybe we'll get some scans. Here's some prednisone. Have a good time. I get some prednisone and do my best to put a good face on, make our way down to Ocean City for a day on the beach, because this California boy needs the sun and the surf even though it's East Coast. Sorry, David, I know. And just thankful because, anyway, and get a phone call from the oncologist or from the doctor saying, hey, there's some funky things going on in your spine. And I'm looking at the app on my phone. I'm reading the report as he's reading it to me. And I have just enough medical knowledge to be dangerous, and I'm reading through it and I'm like, I know what that means. Oh shit. Okay. And he's like, you need to come back and we need to put you in the hospital right away. And I'm like, no, you can run your patient tests on the outpatient basis. I'm not putting my life on hold for you. I'm preaching this next weekend, and then I've got an event the next weekend. You can draw labs from me from the hospital or from the armchair at the clinic. It's okay. We'll make it work. And so, crazy enough, I had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it was everywhere. It was in my pelvis, it was in my hip, it was in my lymph nodes in my hip, it was in L1, L3, it was in my ribs. It was like, and the only abnormal lab test for you medical folk, the only abnormal lab test I had outside of my high platelet count was a high LDH. I had nothing else, and everything I was ever taught, especially my first time as a cancer corpsman on the floor, pain alone is not cancer. There's always something other evidence to provide. I had no masses, I had no lumps, no bumps, no trauma, no MOI, no crazy lab tests. All I had was I couldn't walk and I couldn't lift and I couldn't figure out where the pain was coming from. And it was like, okay, so this is real. And no joke, just so you know, the sense of humor that my family has and the level of sarcasm that we live by. I'm on the couch, phone in hand. I get off the phone with my oncologist and I get all the words and I'm like, cool. All right, 6 treatments. This is August. We'll be done by Christmas. I'll be back at it by March. No problem. Got it. Awesome. Thanks, man. Hang up the phone and I look at my son who's sitting on the couch right next to me. And he's dead spitting image of me. Can't deny him. And he says, so you got cancer, right, Dad? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, so when you lose all your hair, can I put a plunger on your head? I looked at him. I told him to piss off. And we had a good laugh. They actually, I don't have the plunger in here anymore, but they did actually buy me a plunger that they tried to stick on my head when I was bald. It didn't. Apparently, God blessed me with a really, really good cranium that was smooth and didn't have any divots for suction cups. So I know that if I lose my hair when I'm an older man, that, I'm blessed with that. So that was a real thing. And that was a painful thing. And you know what, the it was 6 rounds of treatment, all outpatient. It was the things that sucked the most that made it real. Losing my hair after the first treatment, about 14 days, 17 days after, and the port that they put in my chest. I wanted to cut that thing out. I had claustrophobic moments. Like I couldn't sleep. I'm a side sleeper. I'm a belly sleeper. And like, this is like my spot. And I couldn't do it because the freaking, RoboCop teleport place for the Matrix was stuck right here in the front of my chest. I had a really nice chest. Now there's this big ugly scar on it. Like, all these, I'll take the scar. I will. I'll take the scar and I'll be thankful. And so that was August 2001 until December 2001. 6 treatments. Somewhere in the midst of all that, my active duty daughter came home from Greece where she was stationed. She got to spend a month at home with us, which was great. We got to spend her birthday with us. We had precious family time in the midst of awkwardness. And I found that my friend Richie, who had brought me up to this place that I never thought that I would call home and put roots down, continued to inform my cancer journey. And he informed my cancer journey because he reminded me of hope. He reminded me of my mindset. And every morning, Monday through Friday, I know I had those 3 knuckleheads on the Zoom call waiting for me to pick up the phone and make sure I did a check-in. And even if it was hey, I'm here, go piss off and walk a, long walk, short cliff, whatever. These three guys saw fit to make sure that I had somebody to check in with and somebody to check in with me. So they strengthened my resolve. They strengthened my grit. They provided me a grounding point. They told me really, really bad jokes when necessary. They came to cancer visits with me when I had to go sit, when my wife had to work. They invested in me, and they made sure that I wasn't alone. And like most writers, I took some time to journal some of it on a blog that I didn't keep up with. But if you want to go find it, it's padremikeyd.com. It's pretty easy to find. I'm sure it's even linked on my LinkedIn profile if you want to go read a little bit of my early writings. Just go easy on the grammar and the spelling. I write like I talk. Yeah, so I found that being fully present in every moment was, and having joy and having three guys check in on me was really the key to my success. And it wasn't just the key to my success to overcoming my cancer journey. It was the key to my success for keeping my mental health in check. Because the extrovert in me needs to be around people. The extrovert in me needs to spend time with people. I need to read your facial expressions. I need to read your body language. It fills my cup. If I'm a grumpy jackass, nobody's going to want to spend time with me. And so the one thing that I could control, I couldn't control where my cancer was. I couldn't control if it was spreading or not spreading. I couldn't control how my body was going to respond to the treatments. But I could control my attitude. It was the one thing. Now, if any of you have ever dealt with any kind of addictive process, you understand the desire to medicate is the desire to control an outcome, right? We had an acronym when I was in my recovery groups called HALT BS: hungry, angry, lonely, tired, bored, and stressed. These are the 6 most common triggers for anybody who's dealing with some sort of thing, right? When you're hungry, you're not yourself. Have a Snickers, right? When you're stressed, you say things you don't mean to say. When you're angry, think about these things, right? I found myself on the bottom of a bottle because I was trying to numb pain and hurt and loss. I was bored, I was stressed, I was angry, and I was lonely. Not only did I have abandonment issues from my youth, I had abandonment issues from my mentors and my friends, and then my adults who abandoned me when I was in my 30s. I was like, holy crap. At 35 years old, everybody in my family was gone. It's just my wife and I, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. But I wasn't abandoned. And somewhere later in all of that, I had these 3 friends that decided that I was worth investing in, and then saw me through a really, really dark season. And so I made it a point to be fully present in every moment, and to control my reaction, my interactions, my outcome. So yeah, I'm going to let the corny dad jokes fly. Why? Because I laugh. I think they're freaking hilarious. And it keeps me in the moment. And so that's the grit part. That's the grace part. And because of those things, I get to have gratitude. Here I am later. I am 100% cancer-free. Interestingly enough, today, so February 2nd is kind of neat for a couple of different reasons. It was Groundhog's Day in 1995 that I joined the service. And it was Groundhog's Day 2022 that I left the hospital for the last time after my last treatment. So here I am a year later, literally a year later, after 6 rounds of chemo, 2 rounds of methotrexate to make sure the junk doesn't come back in my spinal column. And hair's back. Hair game is on point, looking really good for 46. I'm loving it. And I get to do some good work, which brings me to where I'm at now, right? So I was really fortunate that the nonprofit I was working for during my cancer carried me through. I owe Aaron and Stephanie and Ron Klabundy at Replenish Foundation and Generosity Feeds a lifelong debt of gratitude for keeping me employed when they didn't have to and they didn't have the money to. They found a way to make sure that I could rest and recuperate and heal. And then when I got out of the hospital and I got home and I had a conversation on February 12th with Stephanie, she's like, Michael, we love you. We need to reduce you to an hourly role and we can really only pay you 10 hours a week. So we know what this means. It's going to be okay, but this is what we can do. And so with understanding and thankfulness, I was already rehabbing myself physically. It was time to rehab myself professionally. And so I don't know if any of you have been recently unemployed looking for a job. I know they keep saying that there's like all these jobs out there. I don't know where the hell they are. And I certainly don't understand why it takes 60 days to get somebody hired, but that's the reality. I don't know if any of you know what it feels like to be always the bridesmaid, but never the bride. You make it to like the final interview to find out that you were 1B. And you're just like, I didn't know that there was anybody else. I asked you if there was anybody else and you said no. And then you're like, oh, that's what it feels like to be stood up at the altar. Got it. Okay. But my faith, my friends, and my family continue to strengthen my grit and give me grace and help me be thankful in every moment and be present in every moment. And so in May of last year, I interviewed with this organization called Stop Soldier Suicide. I had decided when I was going to start looking for a new job, I was going to kind of limit it to a couple of things. It was either going to be something medicine related, because that's where my original background is. Something reasonably ministry related, as long as I wasn't the lead pastor or the deciding pastor. But also I would not be moving because I promised my son he would graduate high school. All three of my kids. I've been in this house 13 years. I've never lived in one place so long in my life. I still have boxes in the basement that I won't unpack because I'm just waiting to move again. It's so weird. Anyway, so medicine, ministry, or military related work. Those are the things I know about. They have to be nonprofit because I want to sleep good at night with my conscience, knowing that I'm making a difference in the world and not living on the profitous gain of others for my selfish desires. And Stop Soldier Suicide just made so much sense. I have my own PTS journey. I've been the frontline care provider for folks. I've taken that 2 a.m. phone call. My husband just wrapped himself around a tree. What do I do? Hey, my wife is leaving me. She just found my porn stash and found out about all the affairs. What do I do? Or my son just passed away, or, my somebody has chosen to take their life. What do I do? I've been that frontline person. I know how that goes. I know I can't do that for my own mental health anymore, but I can provide fundraising support, and I can cast vision, and I can inspire, and I can encourage, and I can call to action. And they were looking for fundraising support. And so I joined the corporate partnerships team with Stop Soldier Suicide, and it's been great. When you find your tribe and you find out that the shoe fits, you kind of have that Cinderella moment. You're like, oh, this is really good. I don't have to pull back any punches. I can say the quirky thing and nobody's going to laugh me off the reservation. I do feel like I'm on the island of misfit toys from time to time, but it's okay because we're all misfits on the island. And so we all fit, and that's great. That keeps us all cogent. And so my role specifically there is to build partnerships between businesses and nonprofits with our organization to raise awareness, to end stigma, but also to create conversations about the very real reality of veteran and military suicide. And I know it's, I've had great conversations with some first responders as well, and some active law enforcement LEO folks. I know that it's not just limited to my demographic. I think if you wear a uniform in any capacity, whether it's a set of scrubs or a set of fatigues, you're at a 1.5 times greater risk or more of dying by suicide than a civilian counterpart. because of what's expected of you in that uniform and in that role, and the things that you see and the things that you encounter. I had my first professional traumatic event when I was 19, 20 years old, and my wife was pregnant with our first child. I won't go into the details. That's not the context of this group, but those are the things that are happening, that have happened to many of us on this call, whether it's yeah. See, I knew, be mindful anyway. And so just, that's the reality. And so how do we address that reality, right? Number one, we talk about it. And I think about my daughter, who's 25, on her third duty station, stationed with a bunch of box of crayon eating, Advil popping, sock changing Marines. And I say that with the most respect and love, because my Marine friends are great. But these guys are, they go hard, and they're expected to travel hard. And if she needs mental health and resource counseling, she's it for her team. Who does she turn to? Because pastors need pastors, first responders need first responders, and counselors need counselors. And so, even when she was dealing with my cancer journey, when she was stationed in Greece, it was still 6 weeks for her to get in with a mental health professional on the island of Crete, because there was nobody else in her clinic that was qualified to provide that. We all know that it's hard to retrain and attract great quality talent. And it's especially hard in the services of care when you're caring for others. And so much of what we do is provide telehealth resource support for veterans and service members. We are one arrow in the quiver. We are not the be all end all, but we are one very important arrow in the quiver to provide continuity of care and conversation and mental health support through licensed practicing counselors, social workers that are certified in CPT and CAMS model assessments, to provide action plans, weekly phone calls, and resource care. So when we say that we were founded by 3 Army veterans, we are veteran led. Our CEO is an Air Force guy. We don't hold that against him. He's actually pretty smart. He's a good dude. I kind of like him. So Chris will keep him around if he ever watches and hears this later. But the only thing that we do is deal with military suicide. There's a lot of other VSOs that are doing great things, and I am indebted to VSOs like DAV and Wounded Warrior Project for seeing my VA claims through to completion, to getting me across that 100% P&T line with all of the medical evidence that I was able to provide. But what we do at Stop Soldier Suicide is literally only address suicide and mental health and wellness. And so that's who we are. That's what we do. We have received numerous grants from Amazon Web Services and other organizations. We're a top 10 finalist for the Mission Daybreak initiative from the Veteran Affairs Association for addressing veteran suicide. We're waiting on the final results to be announced. I'm told it's happening February 17th. Hopefully that actually happens soon. And one of the things that I do as a corporate benefits person is not only do I connect with organizations, but I do webinars with ERGs, employee resource groups, where there are veterans, and we talk about what their existing resources are. We talk about how to provide more resources. We talk about how to talk about this that we're talking about tonight. It's good work. It's hard work. But it's making the difference. In our 10 years of existence, we've not lost a single client in our care. We see dramatic reductions in suicidal ideation in our clients, up to 97% within the first 2 months of care with us specifically. And that's a testament to our frontline cares providers. And my goal is to make sure that they stay well-funded and well-certified in the states where we have clients so that we can continue to provide care. So I've rambled on and on and on for what feels like an eternity. So I want to open it up. Comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas, or if you just need to tell me to pack sand, that's cool too. I get it.
Well, we're definitely not going to tell you to pack sand. Um, that was great though. I really enjoyed hearing your journey, and a lot of what you said really resonated, I know, with me personally. So thank you so much for that. David, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thank you for all of that and for your openness and vulnerability about your story and your journey and all the amazing things that you're doing now for everybody. It's incredible. I definitely, since I'm probably the closest to you here in this group, I'm in Hopewell, New Jersey, so not that far away from you.
Not at all.
And we'd say we actually have where George Washington slept here because that's where he crossed the river for Battle of Trenton. So anybody else is a George Washington slept here place, it's bullshit. But no, I'm actually going to be up your way on Tuesday. If you're around, we're teaching a resiliency class at Moravian for the United Way. And good luck with the final phase of Mission Daybreak. We had applied for that through Resilient Minds in the Front Lines and did not get past the first round. So I'm glad to see that somebody did. And that's awesome. Congratulations. And what an amazing opportunity that program can provide for people, but also for your organization. So that's really cool. And thanks. And let's stay in touch. And just down the road for me.
Yes, sir. Love it. Yeah, I'm going to be down in Charleston, South Carolina for a department on site because all of us are remote. And so my boss lives in Charleston. So I'm actually going to get some warmth. I leave Sunday out of Newark and I'll be back Wednesday morning.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. But yes, let's connect when I'm local again.
Natalie or Chris? Not sure which one wants to. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
He doesn't want to talk apparently. So first, for the East Coast guys, I'm actually from New Hampshire, so I'm a Yankee as well. So there you go. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but actually living in San Diego, I ride through Imperial Beach almost every Sunday on the motorcycle on the way to Coronado to hang out. So I'll throw out some sand for you next time I'm down that way. So if you miss
Thank
it.
you.
First thing I just got to say, man, I love your charisma. You are a terrific speaker. Just love it. If it's okay with you, there's a few things that you said that I'm going to steal from you. That when I do my speaking events, that I thought were just really, really good. The investment thing is just huge. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I took from your speech here. So I don't normally go this direction, and I'm going to call out Chaplain Todd since he's already doing his thing here. I just think it's absolutely completely wonderful that you're here, man. And for Todd, I want to throw you under the bus. Will you do us a favor and just throw out a quick prayer for Michael?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Sure. Put me on the spot. Gracious and Heavenly Father, we come to you today to lift up our brother Michael. Father, we know that we can never be thankful for all things, but through faith, we can learn to be thankful in all things. We are not privy to your plan for us, Father, but we know that it's a perfect plan. I lift Michael up. Give him strength, Father, the strength that can only come from you. His mission is a call from you, Father. Guide him, give him wisdom and discernment. When he speaks, let the Holy Spirit enter his heart and give him the words that you would have him say. I ask you to continue to give him good health. We give you thanks for the healing from his cancer. We lift him up and ask you to bless him in all the things that he does. And we give you thanks for the calling that you gave him. All these things we ask in the name of your precious Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Cool. Thanks, man. So That's all I've got, but let's stay in touch, man. I'd love to hear from more about you later on when we get a chance. So
Yeah, I'm going to put a chit in and see if I can stay up past my bedtime again and pop in from time to time.
thanks, Todd.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. Chris Gregorio.
Brother, absolutely love your enthusiastic energy, man. Like I just echo what Chris said. You know, a lot of people come on and tell a story. It's great, but you have a way of drawing people in with your enthusiasm, and it takes a lot of really hard subjects to keep people kind of compelled, and frankly, some of us to keep from crying. So you keep that energy up, man. I really appreciate that. I generally like to ask a bunch of questions to, you know, for things that people are going to continue to watch this. First, you had said something about, you know, history's behind us, let it throw, you know, kind of keep that stuff in the back. I like to throw it in the back, but also understanding that our history gives us our value, as we talked about walking through our journeys. For you and your journey and the people that you've spoken with, I know a lot of people that I've spoken with that are suicidal ideations. A couple words that always come to the front is shame. How have you dealt with any shame that you've had, and or convinced others the shame that they've dealt with, and how to overcome that barrier is the first one. And then also about abandonment and betrayal. Also always in the forefront of people that are really struggling. What is your advice to people to deal with those three words that are so deeply and emotionally impactful and are a very hard barrier for people to get past?
All right. I'll take the softball question first of shame. You know, I think so. So number one, I'll go back actually to history. History definitely informs the future, right? Many great people have said if we forget our history, we're doomed to repeat it, right? So there's always the mindful reflection on what has been, with an eye towards what can become, right? And so dealing with the shame, that like a layer of an onion, dude, that comes and goes. I don't think you ever have it done with. It's just like you can be free of your PTS symptoms for years, and then all of a sudden you hear a tire go, and next thing you know, you're back someplace that you thought you were done dealing with. And so for me, it's that mindfulness exercise of bringing myself back to today. Where did I wake up today? Who did I wake up next to today? I don't have all the control, but I have control of my breathing. I have control of where I'm at. I can't change what I've done. I've tried to make amends with where I'm at. I promise you, Chris, I will never make it in politics, because the skeletons in my closet will derail any political aspirations I were ever to have. And there's a coming to grips with all that, right? As well, right? And I joke, I say that in jest, but what's done is done. And so for me, it's like, I can't fix it. I can't go back and make right all the things that I've done wrong with someone else. I can make today right, in as much as within my power. And for me, my faith, and I know not everybody shares my position of faith, and I'm not here to proselytize or push it on anybody else, but for me, that's been a grounding thing. Faith that what Jesus did on a cross really did absolve, and you know, that sanctification is a one-time thing, or the sanctification is an ongoing process, but I was justified once. I don't need to rake Jesus over the coals again and again and again to make myself feel better about the stupid junk that I've done. Right? So in as much as it's in my power today, be present, be available, be thankful, let go. Forgiveness, I'll go back to this. Forgiveness is not necessarily for the person you're forgiving. It's for you to release them from the control that you have, that your heart has over them. You have been wronged, you have been offended, you have been hurt. You're waiting for them to come back and make things right. You just got to let it go. You have to lay that down. You're not entitled to anything. What's done is done. Maybe they don't even know that they screwed the pooch and dropped you cold. But I'm in control of my heart, of my feelings, of my attitude, of my reflections, of my mindset. I'm going to exercise presence today to say, you know what? I can't fix that. I can't make I'm never going to get the apology from my father. I'm never going to get the apology from my stepfather. I'm never going to get the apology from my mother. They are wherever they are. May they rest in peace. The peace I can have today, though, is to pay it forward for my 3 kids and make sure that I'm not the schlep that happened, right? And so that goes into how to deal with the abandonment and the betrayal, and I forget what the third one was. Shame as well, right? But if I again, there's an author by the name of Ryan Holiday. He is a revered study on the Stoics. So Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, they talk so much, and Stoicism is not about being cold and unfeeling in as much as it's saying, I am responsible for me. You are responsible for you. I have no authority over you. You have no authority over me. So I'm going to put my head in the right spot today to not, right? So when I was in ministry and I was dealing with someone who was in the throes of emotional upheaval and they were considering suicide as an option, my most important thing to do, and Mandy, you're a psychiatric nurse, so call me out on this if my BS stinks. My job is to be fully present. Say, hey, I know you're hurting. I'm here with you. If you're a person of faith and you've read the Bible, there's this great book called Job. Job went through hell. He had bad advice from 3 friends. But the one thing that his 3 friends did really well is they practiced presence with him in the throes of his pain. And so when I'm dealing with someone who is in that place of hurt and suck, and it started in my own family, I've dealt with it with my daughter and I've dealt with it with others. It's how do I be present and available for you right now? Put the phone down. There's children spell love Time. I think adults spell it that way as well. So that means, what can I do to eliminate the distractions and be fully engaged with you in the moment?
Sounds like that word grace is coming back in a word. Thank you again for sharing and making this normal, because I think that the only reason groups like ours exist is because our society sucks and because it's not normal. So thanks for helping normalize it and helping heal people, brother. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Paul, go ahead.
First, Michael, thank you for your presentation this evening. There's an authenticity about it. And my inner sense of you is that if you had your choice, you'd be a comedian. Because you just come up with these little quips that take you down a different path than everybody was thinking you were going. And that's how comedy works. But a couple of things, seriously. When we fail to learn from our mistakes, that is when we're doomed to repeat them.
Come on.
And forgiveness is probably the second greatest gift we have ever been given. And if we were perfect, we wouldn't need forgiveness, would we?
No, sir.
And since we're not, we need forgiveness. And it needs to start from within, as you pointed out, and others have. And then when there is clarity, to move forward toward forgiving others. And these sound like simplistic things, but they are of value to those who appreciate what they've been taught and what they've learned. And onto the issue of the my injuries in the service were from report writing. And so I got carpal tunnel. End of story. And, coming in with they've stand or some things like that happens for me is I just become so thankful for the many blessings I've had in my life. And when I tell people that I'm blessed, I don't say it boastfully, I say it gratefully. I've had 9 close encounters with death, some more violent than others. But yesterday was my 79th birthday.
Happy birthday.
And I'm still here. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the friends that we have on here who come and listen, and they don't practice judgment. They simply share thoughts and opportunities. And that's really what this group is about. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Todd, go ahead.
You're muted, buddy.
There we go.
Well, brother, I could tell from your speaking that that the Holy Spirit is really with you. You were talking about justification and sanctification. I taught a class on Article 4 of the Augsburg Confessions at church, and wow, what a challenge to get people to get that. I ended up using the analogy that when you're justified, you drown the old Adam, but your journey of sanctification is waking up and drowning him again every single day.
It's a great optic.
You talked about being present, and I've said this to this group, and you know, one of the first things that you learn as a chaplain is it's known as a ministry of presence. And that's one reason why I love this tribe so much, because in essence, every single person you see on the screen is a chaplain of sorts. We're here for each other. We listen and we're present. We don't preach, we don't judge. And that's why I love this group of people so much. I thank God that he's called you to what you've done. Like everybody on this screen, we've been afflicted, but you know, God doesn't afflict us as punishment. He afflicts us to equip us for a greater calling. And that was one of the hardest lessons I had to learn when I took a dive through that staircase in a house fire and almost died, lost my career and lost my identity because it was so wrapped up
Right.
in who I was, and I was lost for a long time, and I had no idea that I was going through a rather extended boot camp. And that when I graduated from that boot camp, I was going to have a calling to what I'm doing now, which is far more fulfilling. As many lives as I saved as a firefighter, what I do now is far more fulfilling than anything I did now. And I want to thank you, just like everybody else in this group. You're an inspiration, and you're a great motivation for me, and I think for a lot of people on this call. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Jim.
Hey, Michael, I just want to thank you for sharing your story and congratulate you as a fellow survivor on your cancer survival. And on a lighter note, just to kind of bring you back to home, I'm going to push my way out of the picture here.
Yeah, I see it. The Hyatt
that
view
is-
right there is shoulder. I see it.
That is sunset over Coronado and Point Loma.
Yeah,
As seen from my balcony.
Mar Vista class of 19, was it 93, I guess. So I guess Chris, you were talking about throwing some shade. Like I used to run up and down. I lived in base housing on Silver Strand. Ran up and down that stretch of beach more times than I care to count or talk about. So thank you for the backdrop, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Mandy, go ahead.
I'm jumping back totally into something else you were talking about, and I found it pretty interesting. You were talking about when you had the cancer, and the thing that got you the most was the port,
Mhm.
and felt so claustrophobic. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, oh my God, this man was on the dive team. He was diving and helping save people's lives, and you totally put yourself out of it, like to help and heal and help other people. But something as little as a little port that really you couldn't handle. And it's amazing, because when you're talking about presence, when you're talking to other patients or people that are suicidal, you really have to, because you don't know what the piece is that brought them to that moment of even suicidal ideation, or a plan, or a plan to act, or whatever it is. But just like people would say, oh my God, this guy dives and saves people under the ocean, with Navy SEALs, and he's crying about this little thing because he can't sleep on his back, so people always just can't judge. And I love your 3 friends. I wish I had 3 friends that would wake up. Well, I'm a night owl that would that would sleep late and call me at 11. But thank you. I mean, I was like half asleep before I got on this call, and now I'm wide awake. Thank you very much.
I hope it's a good wide awake. I hope
Yes.
it's not like.
No, your family is very fortunate, and congratulations on your daughter. And I honor her, and I live in Jersey, so I'm near you like David. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy. Natalie.
Hey, Michael, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story. And part of your story that I really appreciated was that you took time to handwrite, a journal, and keep that a part of your routine, because, when my mother was going through cancer, I became her caregiver. And it was through writing, getting her out of the house, going to a coffee shop, and handwriting thank you notes for local first responders and veterans, and handing those out, and having conversations with them. That's what saved the last 2 years of her life, and it saved my life. Just taking that time to handwrite. And I've never connected with humans more than on that level of handing them that note. And I think just connecting with yourself, like you say, don't worry about grammar. And you'll never hear those words outside of this conversation, because as I struggle. Even my text messages are, grammatically correct. But it's just so important. It's such an important part of being human. And I feel like, if we lose that, we're going to lose a lot of that connection through the handwritten word, even just with ourselves. So I appreciate that part of your story. Congratulations on, surviving cancer and all that you've overcome. It's really amazing to sit here and listen to your story. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I would follow that up with just the reminder that all we can do is put ourselves one foot in front of the other, one moment at a time. As I reflect back, like I don't, and this is not intended to minimize, I know it's going to sound that way, but like I don't feel like I've accomplished near the things that I have ever hoped to accomplish, but I just climbing the mountain that's in front of me one day at a time. We never know how big the mountain is or how deep the valley was until we get to a point where we look back and we go, oh crap, that was a thing. Wow. But that's also the benefit of being fully present in the moment.
Yeah, I look back at that 2-year journey taking care of my mother, and it was literally just the everyday tasks that I could do, like bathe her, feed her, get warm socks for her. I would run to the store to get fudgesicles. That was probably the only thing she would eat. Just those little tasks. And at the time, it was all I could do. It was just
Yeah.
all I could do. And it wasn't until I was able to look back after she passed to realize how far we had come, and how much my life changed because I was able to be there for her in such a very present way. I literally took off work, everything, and it was amazing.
Yeah, Joshua Medcalf wrote a really great 5-hour audio book called Chop Wood, Carry Water. And the premise of that book is how do you fall in love with the process of being great? Well, you do the little things day after day after day. Derek Jeter didn't become, unfortunately, he was a Yankee, but he didn't become a phenomenal shortstop because he tried to be a phenomenal shortstop like Ozzie Smith. He practiced the fundamentals day after day after day. And yeah, so like it's just that daily exercise of one foot in front of the other today in this moment, and I'm a year out and I look back and I'm like, man, did I waste my cancer journey? And I go back and I have friends come back and give me the NCIS slap upside the back of their head. And they're like, dude, do you know what you did? And I'm like, I don't know. I was just trying to do my thing every day. And they're like, yeah. And here's that ripple effect, that impact. So Paul, you've had your hand up for a hot minute, buddy. So I guess it's back to you.
Thank you. Hearing about cancer from a number of you, I want to share something with you, and this is totally, my wife is a quote, she's and she makes a thing called a port pal.
Mm-hmm.
Port pal is a device, it's a pad that attaches to your shoulder
Chest.
belt. Yeah. And it prevents the pressure on the port. And for any of you that have a need for this or know somebody that does, please feel free to get in touch with me. She makes them all the time. She's got lots of them. And we take them to hospitals and give them to patients there. Anybody with a port on either side can use it. And so I offer that for whatever it's worth. And I'm serious. Please get in touch with me if you have a need for them, because we'll ship them out to you in nothing flat.
Is that on the 7 Stitches boutique?
I'm not familiar with that term, so I can't answer that.
Does she have a website?
No.
Okay. So that's not who I found online. Got it.
She makes port pill. She doesn't do websites.
Understood.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Carrie, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, thanks again for just sharing your gifts and talents with our community.
Hey, man.
I really appreciate what you've done. There's so many common denominators, and I won't go into all of that, but some of the highlights, I'm very big on journaling, mindfulness, and meditation. And out of the 7 years that I've been working with veterans and essential personnel, I've got the same statistics. We haven't had one person, commit suicide after going through, some holistic methods to healing. So it's just, I'm going to encourage you and everybody else on this call just to keep forging and keep pressing forward and keep sharing your stories and keep motivating and inspiring one another, because you never know whose life you're going to impact and whose life you're going to transform or whose life you're going to save. So thank you for allowing me just to share for a minute. I know it's getting late and I know it's way past everybody's bedtime. So thanks.
Thank you, Carrie. Well, Michael, thank you again so much for sharing your journey. I think you've had many parts of your story that have resonated with all of us. So I really appreciate you coming on and being vulnerable. And we welcome you to join us on any of our future Thursday night gatherings here. We hope you come back again.
Thank you so much. I appreciated my time tonight.
Hey,